This is chapter 5 of Journey to Self Realization, written by Sri Paramahansa Yogananda. How God is pulling us back to Him. A compilation from two talks on the same subject delivered respectively at the Self Realization Fellowship Temples in Hollywood and San Diego, California, August 4 and 11, 1946. All paths, all paths are path to God, because ultimately there is no other place for the soul to go. Everything has come out of God must go back to Him, even in the evil. Man is seeking happiness. Worldly happiness inevitably leads to disillusionment, but those who go on seeking, throwing away one after the other the shining glass bits of pleasure of the world, will at long last find the diamond of true happiness in God. Satisfaction will never come from anything less than God. Since the various paths of life take you to God, eventually, in the set course of evolution, if you have self control and lead a normal, rational life and try to seek true happiness, it is alright to keep on in this average way, but it may take you many, many incarnations. It is better to make a conscientious effort to hasten your attainment of God. The saints and the ascetics would not go to all of the hard work that they do unless they found inspiration within it, the inspiration of joy. Unattracted to the sensory world, the yogi experiences the ever new joy inherent in the self, engaged in divine union of the soul with spirit. He attains bliss indestructible. Most people are not awakened to the fact that God Himself is what they truly want, first and last. Bread the men of the world seek after, but seek ye first the kingdom of God. Bread means the pleasure and desires for things of the earth for which people pray. But you who are wise seek God first, all things else will come to you. You will be surprised how, by constant prayer, your life will change. Not the prayer of a beggar, but the loving demand of a child to his heavenly Father. God, being your Father, is not bound by the consciousness of gratuity and pity that motivates an almsgiver. You have a divine right inherited from God to demand from Him, and He will respond to you because you are His own. If you constantly call to Him, He cannot escape the net of your devotion. If you pray until the ether churns with the light of your prayer, then you will find God. But if while you are praying for God to come, you are thinking of something else, that is wanting God because you want something from Him, you won't find Him. Your purpose of seeking God must be straight, and your efforts intensified by the sense of necessity for God that you awaken in yourselves. Religious superstition has taught people to be afraid of God. You trust yourselves more than you trust God, and yet you know that in the ultimate sense you cannot breathe or walk or move without the direct impelling force of His presence in the brain, in the heart, in the cells of the body. Just because you have become accustomed to dependence on food, air, and sunshine, you think these external support your life. It is a delusion to think so. You are directly dependent on one power, which is God, because he is the all supreme. Religious superstition has taught people to be afraid of God. That is not the relationship you want with your heavenly Father. I don't give you the hellfire and brimstone gospel. I want to teach you that God is your own, dearer than the dearest, nearer than the nearest, more loving than all things that we love. If you would but treat him that way, if you would but lift one hand, if he would drop two hands to lift you up. If you are unceasing in grasping for the hand of Spirit, He will come without fail. God has put me through the greatest trials, but as often as I felt He was gone, He came with violent shaking to free me from my pouting against Him. We pout often, but we should never doubt, and when we pout, it should be so strongly that the mother has to come to look after us. Of course, I don't pout for my needs anymore, but for those who the organization God won't tell me until the last minute that He is coming to my aid. But He does come without fail. I find that He is with me always. Never has He failed me. If you have the trust and if you love Him more, you shall feel that He has loved you always, and that is what you didn't seek Him. That is why you thought He was away. He is never indifferent to us. We are indifferent to Him. God is compassionately aware that He has sent us here into this troublesome world, and if He cares for the sparrows that are sold for a farthing, how much more does He care for us? Only He wants to be sure of our love, so He plays hide and seek with us. God has an inferiority complex. He is not sure whether the devotee truly wants him or something else. I tell him often, Lord, if they only knew how wonderful you are, they would seek you. But you keep yourself hidden in the flowers, in the cloud, in the ether. Yet when you look at the beauty and wonders of nature, how can you doubt God? He works in everything, and His tools are life and intelligence. Just as ships at sea can be controlled by radio, so are we controlled by the radio power of intelligence of God. Without His beam of life, we are dead. Why not seek that power which is the source of being? Why not seek the giver instead of the gift? That is where the real freedom lies. He is working right within your brain cells and your thoughts. If you would but contact Him within, you would find a friend who is unfailing, a lover who never lies. It is God alone who is pursuing you with His love and who is seeking you right within you. If you would seek Him willingly, if you would pursue Him within, you would find Him. It is only the misuse of your free will and the resistance of your karma, the effects of past wrong actions that prevent the quickening of your footstep towards the divine goal, the law of attraction inherent in creation. Setting aside the old superstitious beliefs, we should find out why we should seek God. When we look at the processes of nature, we will see why. So, I shall discuss today's subjects from an entirely different standpoints from the standpoints of science and metaphysics. You will see what a wonderful analogy there is between the descension of the universe from God and the ascension of the universe back to God. Inherent in creation is the law of attraction. Celestial bodies exert their gravitational attractions on one another. Humans beings are subject to the pull of good and evil. Many persons take to drink or to various other evil diversions. The saints are intoxicated with God. The man who turns from the church to the bar in the village in his drinking, unhappiness, destructions of health, and loss of keenness of mind, but he who goes into the church within himself and quaffs is the inspiration of bliss that flows from the vintage cake of silence is ever happy. So goes the search for the infinite. When you understand the law of gravitation, you can understand the best way to tune in with the pull of God and therefore the best way to find Him. Gravity's effect is seen when two bodies are free to move and they are drawn towards each other. Gravitation, according to physical science, is that attractions which exist between masses of matter by virtue of which every such mass tends towards every other mass with a force varying directly as the product of the masses and inversely as the square of their distance apart. That is, if the distance between two masses is one foot, the attractions will be relatively strong, and if the distance is increased to 2 feet, the attraction will be only one fourth as powerful. The law of gravitation is universal, the same in Earth as the Sun, and in all objects in the space. The Sun gravitates the Earth, and the other solar planets keep them whirling around it. The Earth gravitates the Moon. The attractions of the Earth for the bodies of its surface is the same as the Earth's attractions toward the Moon. The only difference is that the gravitational effect of the Earth on the Moon is reduced by the square of the distance from the Moon to the Earth's core. The mass of both objects and the distance between them determines the force of gravity. Gravity is not a one sided pull, but the pull between two objects. Just following this analogy, it will come to a beautiful spiritual understanding. Imagine, for example, that here are two bodies. You pull at one and it comes towards you. But if that body is pulling away from you with a force equal to your pulling, then there is a balance. The moon, by centrifugal force, is pulling away from the earth, but the gravitational attraction of the earth toward the moon keeps a balance. It is evident that the same force of gravity has given balance to the entire universe, so that the pull exerted by each object on every other an ordinary balance. Otherwise, all things would have flown apart in infinite space. On the other hand, if gravity were the sole force at the work, the cosmos, everything would have melted into one mass of matter. God's forces of attractions and repulsions and work in cosmic creation. With a giant telescope, 6,000 stars were visible in one small part of space. Though they seem like little dots in the sky, most of them are 100 times bigger than the sun. Just think how immense God is, that the whole universe is contained in only a fragment of His being. The Lord seems to be having a lot of fun playing with these marbles in the sky. Creation came into being by the power of repulsion, by which God sent forth from Himself His creative forces. By this outgoing creative power, God is repulsing us and the world of matter away from Himself. And yet, at the same time, He has instilled in His creation the forces of His pull to draw us back into Himself, which is much greater. If God didn't pull us, we would be completely thrown into matter of unending incarnations. From the study of theogony, we learn that many ancient cultures ascribed the beginning of creations to the descent of gods or celestial creative forces. The ancient Parsis, for example, believed in the gods Ormusd or Ahura Mazda and Ahriman, who evolved themselves out of primordial matters and were the two deities who created respectively good and evil. The origin of material world is illustrated in the Egyptian notion of a cosmic egg made by God Path, out of which creation issues. According to the Hindu belief, Brahma is the eternal self-existent being, a spirit, the immutable absolute, which unfolds itself into creation of condensing a finite portion of its consciousness into causal, astral, and material objects through the gradations of subtle creative vibratory elements of ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Spirit's consciousness as immanent in creation as the creator in the word soul out of whom all souls have come. This Brahma, the transcendental ever existing intelligence, emanates a hierarchy of individuals' creative intelligences. In the Sankhya doctrine of evolution of matter, we follow the chain of causes back to the principal creative intelligence, the unlimited eternal primordial nature or Mahaprakriti. Out of these principles or original nature, all existence have issued and into it they will return. The primordial creative nature is endowed with its own volition to carry out the development of creation. Its first emanation as plastic nature contained the original soul or deity Prajapati, out of which all individual souls have issued. The first physical being were called Swambhuva Manu, man born of the Creator, and Kshatrava, having 100 image of forms. Just as Adam and Eve are the symbolic first man and woman of the Judeo Christian tradition, though the Hindu concept refers to the creative intelligence as deities, they are understood to be none other than individualized aspects of one spirit. God transforms himself into those intelligences and then into matter and human beings, just as our consciousness can transform itself into a dreamland wherein we can see and experience everything as though it were real. Human beings, earth scenes, planets, animals, so on. But when we wake up, see, they were all made of one dreaming consciousness. The magical power by which God differentiates his infinite consciousness into finite dreams image and gives them the dream reality is called Maya, cosmic delusion. A tug of gravitational existence between God and Maya and man. God is pulling man and Maya is pulling man, and man is free to move towards either. God and man, God and cosmic delusion are all pulling on each other. God is pulling creation, including man, towards himself, and material man and nature are pulling away from God. Whatever exerts a gravitational pull towards God is good. Whatever pulls begins away from God is evil. There is a sort of balance when neither good nor evil predominates, but sometimes that balance is lost. As when man turns toward evil and pull far away from God, so that he feels less and less attractions to divine, but no one can pull away from God completely. The stronger gravity of God will gradually draw the soul back to him again, though it may take innumerable incarnation to do so. When you shoot an arrow, it travels with its force until that force dissipates and gravity causes it to fall back to earth. In the same way, we were propelled from God, and our desires are the force that keeps us moving away from Him. Coursing through the sky of reincarnation, God's gravity may seem to have failed us, but He is constantly pulling us towards an inevitable return to Him. When our desires will be exhausted, then we will be drawn towards God again by the power of His gravity. How the thoughts of God evolves into matter. Now, thought is the most elastic of forces because it is the finest vibration of consciousness. You can divide thoughts into smaller and smaller units, and you will never be able to reach the end. Conversely, you can increase in size, for example, a mental concept of earth, expanding it throughout eternity, and still you will never be able to exhaust infinity. So, God's first expression of creation is of vibratory consciousness, thoughtrons, or small units of thought. These first thoughts became positive and negative. Because no creation is possible at all without duality, without good and evil, light and shadows, only God's undifferentiated consciousness would remain. So God projected out of himself units of positive and negative thoughts from which everything is created, just as a dream is created by units of thought. First, a world of ideas came into being, the causal universe. Then, those units of thought became lifetrons, the substance of an astral world of finer than atomic forces. Then, lifetrons became condensed into the material creation consisting of positive and negative protons, electrons, atoms, molecules, cells, and so on. Atomic physics demonstrates that all things in the material cosmos are made of atoms that may vary high weight, density, power, size, and configuration, and have within them the qualities necessary to inform the infinite varieties of matter and life. But science has yet to recognize the lifetronic power and thoughtronic intelligence behind the atomic building block that, in accord with God's cosmic laws, wielded with Mahaprakriti, primordial nature, combine them to produce mineral, vegetable, animal, and human forms. Evolution versus involution. When God saw that he had driven these elements of creation out of himself from the finest to the grossest forms, the process of involution began to work. From the standpoint of our subjects today, think of evolution as going away from God and involution as going back to God. For every process of evolution, there is a process of involution. As God's creative thoughts assume their grossest form in matter, then involution begin. The process of involution is going on all the time. God's dreaming consciousness manifests first in the stones or inert minerals. It then begins to stir in the sensitivity of plants but has no self consciousness. Then come all forms of sentient life in the animal kingdom. The innate vitality and consciousness then finds expression in man with a superior intelligence power to reason and discriminate, and finally in the superman of superconsciousness of God is fully reflected. Thus does creation go away from God and then come back to him again. God will give salvation not only to man but the planets, the earth and the stars, everything that has worked so hard for billions of years to provide a stage for a cosmic dream drama. Going back to God by the involutionary procedure of nature is a very slow process, but the discriminating man eventually asks, why wait millions of years before I can return to God? He reasons that he didn't ask to be created in the first place, that God created him without his permission and therefore he should release him. He refuses to wait longer. When the desire comes, man has made the first definitive turn back to God. When you truly want to be released from this earth dream, there is no power that can stop you from attaining liberation. Never doubt it. Your salvation is not to be achieved, it is already yours because you are made in the image of God. But you have to know this. You have forgotten it. The musk deer madly seek the fragrant musk everywhere in the frantic search carelessly slips into its death from the high mountain crags. Had the foolish deer only turned its nose to the musk pouch within himself, it would have found that which is sought. Similarly, we have only to turn within ourselves to find our salvation in the realization of our true selves. The soul is made in God's image, manifesting the divine qualities inherent in five stages of soul's return to God. Man has evolved through aeons. In order to quicken his involution back to God, he has to make an effort to stimulate the process of natural evolution. He does this outwardly to better his physical existence. For example, man was created by nature to use his feet for locomotion. The process was too slow and too limited in distance, so he used animals to ride on. Then he invented the car and the airplane and so on. Now, why shouldn't we likewise accelerate our soul's evolution? The soul of man has to ascend through the five states or stages of evolution previously described before he get back to God. Mineral, plant, animal, man, and superman. He is to accumulate into himself the divine qualities inherent in each stage. He must be transparent like the gems without spots of defective perception. He has to develop their crystalline character by removing the mental blemishes in his otherwise sparkling mentality. His thinking and perception should have gem like clarity that will understandingly reflect the divine mind. This means his sensations must be pure. Misuse or overindulgence of any senses creates flaws in the sensibilities. But if the gem of one's sentiment mentality is unclouded, one then develops spiritual sensitivity. The spiritually progressive man is consciously sensitive to life and his surroundings, like the sensitive response of plants to their environment. But as the sensitivity of plants adheres harshness, the spirituality sensitivity being shuts the coarseness of material things and find himself gravitating towards God as plants turn toward the sun. Then comes the vitality of animal. Though they may have a great strength and willpower, they do not know how to use these energies intelligently. The progressive man must be full of vitality like the animal, but employ the animal's strong will not for avaricious purpose but govern activity with self control and to have mastery over the life force. When the vital force is always engaged in something good and worthwhile and is not dissipated in bad habits or the abuse of sex, then man is going towards God. But as soon as he gives in to plainly indiscriminate animalistic instincts, he is going towards matter. That is the common happening we see everywhere. The yogi, on the other hand, learns how to use vitality and will with wisdom. He is not weak. He is the master of self control. He knows how to relax and throw the searchlight of vitality within to reveal the presence of spirit. The reversal of life forces from matter to spirit is called pranayam. By withdrawing the life current from externals through Kriya Yoga, the consciousness begins inwardly to awaken to its higher nature in God. The rational man thereby becomes a thoughtful, discriminative being, ever progressive in his power to think and reason clearly. He develops pure reasons or discrimination in which his rationality is no longer mixed up with doubt and misconception. He learns to reason with wise men and to understand the truth they express and exemplify. If you reason with people who are always in doubt and confused, and especially if your own consciousness is not yet firm in true understanding, your brain will also become infected by doubt and confusion. So many people try to win their points by argument, but I'll let them have a sense of victory right away. There is no use talking to them. Fools argue, wise men discuss. When we conversed with Master Swami Sri Yukteswar, it was the combination bond by pure reason and blessed by his wisdom. The masters cling to truth, not theories, but most people are enslaved by emotion and circumscribed by their own opinions. If two people really want to find truth, they can agree very quickly. It is only by developing both pure reason and pure feeling that you can reach God and truth. In the ordinary man, reason is uppermost and feeling is hidden. In the average woman, feeling is uppermost with reason hidden. If you have too much feeling, it becomes emotion and will take it to the meshes of matter, and too much reason becomes rationalization, which also takes you into delusive man. When you have balance, reason, and feeling by meditation, you will come to God and truth perception. By an interchange of these qualities, man and woman can help to balance in each other pure reasons and pure feeling, thus helping each other towards union with God. But marriage is not the only way. By successful meditation, One attains this balance within himself or herself, for it's already there, hidden in the soul. After developing the balanced reason and feeling of the discriminative stage, the last stage of involution is to be attained the pure intuition, omniscience of the Superman. He is intuitively progressive in feeling his soul and spirit. He must then fully lift his consciousness from the body and materiality to his original omnipresent state. The freed soul is back once more with the God. You can develop in yourselves all these final qualities by which God is processing matter once again into spirit. You can hasten this process in your own body by spiritualizing it through meditation and Kriya Yoga. You will see your body changing into a mass of light, atoms, and condensed electromagnetic energy when you gravitate towards God. Those luminous atoms are realized to be not else than the vibratory thoughts of God, the compressed consciousness of a spirit. The paths of knowledge, devotion, and action. Of different prescribed paths that lead to God, I will show you how the law of spiritual gravity is applied to the ways of knowledge, devotion, and action. According to how you apply the principles of these paths, you are pulled either by spirit or by matter. The path of knowledge or reason, if you program yourself with theoretical knowledge, you will become a walking Victoria, able to repeat lawfully praises and to be considered a learning being, but your knowledge will be unsupported by your own realization or spiritual attainment. Such intellectualism keeps the ego tied to the physical faculties of mind and its relations to matter. Theoretical knowledge cannot give you realization about God, so don't waste your time on too much theory. Those who do so become lost in the jungle of reason and never get beyond more theories. In the process of reasoning and the reasoning, they never perceive truth, and for truth is beyond reason. Most intellectualists thus become bound by their own conclusions. If you use your power of reasons only to make money and seek material gain, again you will gravitate toward matter. So the masters say, do not use your God given reasons to become more and more mixed up with the labyrinth of matter and in the egoist limitations of the intellect. With the power of discrimination, study and applied truth until it becomes your own intuitive realization. When you develop your intuition, you will feel the presence of God and His omniscience within you. That is called esoteric reason for Jnana Yoga. The path of devotion. If you have pure devotion, you will feel the pull of God and will find Him. But again, there are two poles in this path also. Two forces pulling you, devotion to God and devotion to matter. Even death tries to remind us that it's foolish to be lured by material attractions. The master is devoted to objects of matters and remains unattached to them by the end. Even though he at last has to leave everything behind, yet to his final bath he is just as devoted to material things as the yogi is to God. But the yogi reasons matter is external and possession of its object is short lived. Why should I concentrate on the little temporal things and exclude eternity? Devotion to God alone is the only way to everlasting fulfillment. The consciousness of the worldly man is circumscribed by and is devoted to his body, his surroundings, and his family. His attachment says, us for and no more. He should rather use the family affection as a lesson in learning to expand his love. As soon as you love not only your family but give that love to all, you are growing toward God. That is why Jesus said, love thy neighbor as thyself. To use family affections for all, to give toward the world the same love you have for self and family is gravitation toward God. Lessen the consciousness of family, property, and all material attachment and begin to re express the omnipresence you have lost. In loving God, do not lose your devotion in emotion. This sometimes happens on the path of devotion. I was surprised to find holy rollers in the country begun with the certain sects in India. But when devotion is expressed in physical emotion, the pure quality of love is lost in the external expenditure of the life energy in the muscles. When the body and mind gravitate toward God, they become calm and quiet. The consciousness and life force become interiorized by when one is inwardly with God. True devotion is like a plummet that sinks into the sea bottom of the perception of God. That is Bhakti Yoga. The path of action. Some persons have a natural inclination to be active. They love the motion of working and serving. If you work for your own self, you are pulled toward matter. But if you work with the thought of doing everything for God, you are pulled toward God. When your activity centers only on making money for material advantage for yourselves and your loved ones and on an activity with a selfish and you are going away from God. Thus, do most people engage their energies in their attachment and their desires for more and more material acquisitions. But as soon as your active energy is used to seek God, you move toward Him. You see again this constant pull from God and from matter. One side says make money for material satisfaction, and the other side says find satisfaction in seeking God, in serving God and inquiring, monitoring success to help God's work for uplifting others spiritually, mentally, and physically. When you act for material gain, you are yielding to the gravitational pull of matter. When you are acting for God, you are linked to the gravitational pull of God. If your desire for material things and for God are even, you will be more or less as a standstill. If your desire for God becomes greater than your desire for material things will be lessened. Engaging in a spiritual activity consisting of both meditation and working with the thought that everything you do is for God, that is Karma Yoga. When in meditation you feel God's bliss eternal, you will no longer feel tied to the body and you will feel filled with enthusiasm to work for Him. You can't be a lover of God and be lazy. One who meditates and loves God is always active for Him and for others. Work for God, love God, be wise with God, and realize Him through Kriya Yoga. Seeking union with God by wisdom alone, by devotion alone, or through action alone is one sided. The far superior way is to take your mind and vital forces, all your desires and your devotion and wisdom and service, and dissolve them in all in God. When by Kriya Yoga you can withdraw your life energy and consciousness from the five senses telephones, when you can withdraw your vitality from your body and mind and throw the searchlight of your attention on God, that is the highest way to God. By Kriya Yoga, you shut off the senses at will and take your mind and life vitality, sensibility, and plunge into the infinite. The person within whom the aurora belief of spirit is dancing, whether materialistic, he possesses much or no outward glamour at all, he is the real soul. So, the easiest and best way to God is not to be limited only to Gyan Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, or Karma Yoga, but to combine them, work for God, love God alone, and be wise with God. Use your reason not to become an overstuffed intellect but to find God, gravitating toward intuitive wisdom gained in meditation and avoiding theoretical knowledge and materialistic rationaling. Your use your devotion not for worldly attachment to things and or people, but for finding God, absorbing yourselves into devotion and ecstasy with God and people. Work not to yourselves under any circumstances, but for God and to help others. The culmination of these lines in following the direct highway to God through practicing Kriya Yoga, listening to cosmic sound of God's voice of Om, quieting the heart and breath were drawn towards body consciousness and seeing His great light of omnipresence. Worshipping in the church or temple is a good habit, provided you learn from the inspiration to go into your own temple of meditation and ecstasy within. In the deepest hours of the night and the quiet of the dawn, enter your inner cathedral, talk to your thoughts audiences, rousing all of them to be devoted to the infinite, and on the ground organ in your temple of peace, the great Om will be played. Start tonight to meditate earnestly. Do not wander aimlessly. Go straight to God. You have closed the gates to heaven by gravitating towards matter and the body. Gravitate toward Him who is constantly pulling you. Go back to God. Remember, the kingdom of God is within you. If you meditate and seek Him with wisdom, devotion, and good actions, you will surely find Him. Jai Gurudev. Thank you.